Listen up! There is a storm coming! Like nothing you have ever seen!
Well, howdy, folks. Hope you're doing all right. How was your weekend? You did okay? I did about 600 kilometers or more, probably a bit more. Did a fair bit of driving, did a little bit of sleeping, did some catching up with friends who I haven't seen in many moons. And now I've pulled up in a very nice little part of the world with ocean views, and the sounds of crashing waves will send me off to sleep tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. I've had a couple of interesting conversations with people over the last few days, and I want to start out with an apology to you. I'm sorry that I'm not on every night. I will attempt to make that better. Some days, particularly after I've traveled a long distance, it's mentally draining driving this vehicle, particularly on some of the roads through Victoria, I've found. So by the time I finish driving, I am really wasted. And then I sit down and spend a couple of hours looking through what's going on in the world. And by the time I get it together, I'm just about ready to fall asleep. And in fact, that did happen to me on Saturday when I've turned up to visit some friends. They took me for a drive to show me around their area, and I fell asleep in the backseat of their car. Not the best sort of look. So, yeah, not flash. I'm feeling fine. Don't get worried about my health. I'm doing quite fine. Daylight savings has mucked with me, the body clock a little bit. I love the twilight. I love the late nights. I'm just not used to them. Normally in Queensland, the body clock sees the sun go down and it says, okay, you've got about 2 hours left and you go to sleep. Here, it's sort of doing the same kind of thing, but I'm up very early in the mornings. So sometimes I'm burning the candle at both ends, and occasionally that means that I have a problem putting a show out, or I've got a transmission issue, a connection issue. I think I should just about have sorted most of those issues out. I have backups for backups and alternatives for connection and all that sort of thing. So I think by now, we've got a bit of continuity going on in the background with what I need to keep on the air. So fingers crossed that will be happening a lot more regularly. But I do understand, although I failed to until I caught up with somebody today, and they brought it up to me along with somebody else who had mentioned it to me in the last few days, and then I've run into somebody else today who's mentioned it as well. And I apologize. I kind of lose sight of the fact that we're friends, that we're family. I don't lose sight of that. It's just that I get tired and I fall asleep. So my apologies. I'm going to get better, and once we've figured out how we're going to do what we're going to do in here a little bit better, and that's in part what I'm doing here. We're going to make some modifications inside the vehicle. There is a whole area that has stuff in it that I've never even used, never unpacked, don't look like unpacking to use. But that area would be very useful for putting the gear in, so we can set up a multi-camera show very easily, very quickly, and run it from that position. So we'll get all that sort of sorted out in the not too distant future. At the moment, we're busily trying to sort out things like our hydrogen. And we will talk more about hydrogen because I have some hydrogen figures for you after the weekend of running. And when we talk those figures, hopefully we'll do it with a man who knows more about it than I do, Tim Dwyer. With a bit of luck, will be joining us in a little while too. I did want to talk about a few other things, but before we get into that, say good day to a few folks. Who was first in the room tonight? Chris was in, followed very closely by Aussie Sue, Valorant Nick, and Apache's back in. Hello, Margot, Michelle, Macca's in, Margot's in, Harm. Good to see you, buddy. Great to catch up. And who else? Zippy. Oh, I haven't seen Zippy for a little while. 10 Cent. There's Pete, the man from Pinaroo. He's been telling me that recently many more planes flying over their head, spraying things, and then sort of turning right and heading back across the continent again. It's all a little weird. And I've had some interesting conversations in the last couple of days with someone rather unexpectedly about wanting to have a conversation about particularly the spraying stuff. So a bit of research being done, and we'll see what we can come out there. Hi, Suze. Look, I know people probably don't expect it, but I've come across some people in the last few days who are really quite affected by the fact that when I'm not on, and I'm sorry for that. They begin to worry that something's happened, and I guess in certain climates that could possibly be the case. Fortunately, at the moment, not so much. I don't tend to advertise too much at the moment where I'm going to be or what I'm doing. I'm not doing too many live shows as such, although I might sneak a couple in before I get back to Queensland. I'm doing that for a reason. We will do a lot more live shows. But at the moment, it's difficult as a one-person operation to run all the gear and talk to you coherently. I'm not capable of doing it, and we don't have the budget for me to have a Galactic Larrikin on the road as much as I would love to have Rob with me. It's just not in the budget at the moment to put him on the road and give him somewhere to sleep and all the other bits and pieces that we need. So we need to, work further towards finding better sponsorship, more sponsorship, not better, but more sponsorship to help get a larrikin on the road so that we can bring the video advantage that we have to help. So certainly I can do bits and pieces out of here, but talking, and I'm a typical bloke. I can really do one thing at a time, and you see that every time I look down here and grab the mouse and try and do something, and I forget what I'm talking about. So imagine that 6 times over when you've got a bunch of cameras. You've got to pick which camera you're going to shoot with, and is everything working right? Yeah, we'll push that button. It's a big job, and that's why it takes a Galactic Larrikin usually to help me. So with a bit of luck, that will come in the future, but right now it's very difficult for me to roll everything out by myself and do those big full-on shows, but we'll do the best we can at different times. Before we get into chatting H2, I want to give you a little bit of news of what's going around in the world. You might have heard there was a big event that happened on January 6th in America a couple of years ago, and there were some people who've been locked up forever over it. One of the blokes who wasn't locked up, but who was actually charged with 7 very serious charges, conspiracy charges against the Capitol, was a bloke called John Sullivan. You might know him as a BLM activist. He was found guilty on all charges, all 7 charges, and has been locked up waiting for sentencing, which will happen some stage in December. Now, this is the young bloke who managed to get inside the Capitol building that day, and the videos that he took were shown by CNN and NBC. They paid him, in one particular video's case of he and another BLM activist in the Capitol, paid them $80,000 for that one video, and they paid $35,000 each for another video that he made that day as well. They called him a hero. He's now been found guilty and convicted on all charges for the shit that he got up to, which was propagating the lie, essentially. So speaking of lies, here's a good one. The WF has ordered governments to lower the age of consent to 12. Now, I don't know that I believe that just yet. I've only just seen that in the last 10 minutes before coming to air, and I haven't had the ability to do any research on it yet. But Baxter Dimitri seems to think that this is fact-checked and for real. So if that is the case, calling on world governments to do this is one thing. Ordering world governments to lower the age of consent to 12 and to decriminalize pedophilia is a vastly different matter. Now, if, as I say, this says 2 blue ticks, fact checked. If this is for real, Fair dinkum, folks. Are we watching a movie? They can't be serious about that, surely. Expect the world to just acquiesce and say, oh, yes, our 12-year-old's a fair bait, a fair game. A lot of other things have popped up today. This is an interesting piece from Muammar Gaddafi. Now, you might remember Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated by his own people, supposedly. There was video of the time of him being murdered, and I want to say that he had a knife inserted in his rectum at the time as well. So this is something that he had out before, obviously, he died. And what Gaddafi was trying to do at the time was unite Africa and bring the Arabs all over together through Qatar and drop out of the world central banking system. They were creating their own currency, and that currency was going to be backed in gold. Now, of course, the West wanted in. There was no central bank in Libya. And of course, what comes with the West? Corporations come with the West, and he didn't want to have any part of capitalism for that very reason. However, he was very successful in uniting Africa and the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and other parts of the Middle East into uniting and starting to form a gold-backed currency, which NATO did not like at all. Now, this is a memo. I'm not going to read it all out to you at the moment. If you want to, you can freeze the screen at some stage and go up and have a bit of a read. But this outlines how the French were influencing the rebels inside Libya at the time, and goes to significantly show that there was a large element of NATO involvement, sourcing of armament, training personnel, all sorts of stuff that came in as soon as Gaddafi was dead. So more little pieces of truth coming out about history that we thought we knew, and then we really didn't. Of course, if you've got something and you don't want anybody to know about it, maybe a gun, you can make it totally invisible by hiding it inside an Epstein client list. Speaking of Epstein, here's something that I really wasn't expecting to see today. Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I don't know how old this video is, but if you have a bit of a look, it's just a cry for sympathy. She's trying to get a shorter sentence. Have a look at this piece of film.
That he was murdered. Well, I was shocked. And I wondered how it had happened. Because as far as I was concerned, I was sure he was going to appeal. And I was sure that he was covered under the non-prosecution agreement. But I wasn't in the indictment. So I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even one of the co-conspirators. I obviously wish I'd never met him. You know, looking back now, I probably wish I had stayed in England. But leaving that aside, you know, I tried to leave and start a new job and move on from the end of 98, 99. So I wish that I had been more successful at moving on. Because I became a banker, so I should have, you know, moved on completely. At the time, I wouldn't have had a problem introducing people to my friends to him, because I didn't know that he was so awful. I mean, obviously now, looking back with hindsight, of course, but at the time, I mean, he had lots of friends. I mean, he was friendly with just about everybody you can imagine. There was no reason to imagine that he wasn't someone of interest to people.
Just a piece of work. Just in hindsight. There are plenty of 15-year-old girls who've got stories to tell about Ghislaine Maxwell, and she wasn't too much worried about hindsight while she was picking those girls up off the streets. Speaking of people being picked up off the streets, Xi Jinping held a party recently. Get a load of who attended. unlike our meeting with Albo, they look to be enjoying themselves. Albo, on the other hand, looked like he'd just delivered the message that Joe wanted delivered and was trying to figure out how he politely said, listen, can you not ping our Navy sailors when they're in the water using your super secret sonar, please? Did you hear about that last Tuesday? Mainstream media have only really just released it. Others have been talking about it now for, probably since last Wednesday. It's been an ongoing story. What sort of damage happens to a sailor when they get pinged by a super secret sonar? Well, I'm led to believe that your ears will be ringing a fair bit. And this particular sonar is very, very powerful. What they were doing, why they were doing it, is anyone's guess. At the moment, the Australians aren't really saying why we had, well, apparently our boat had run through some fishing trawler nets and had got them caught up in the props. So the divers were in trying to cut the props free from the fishing net. There were flags up and radio communications were established with the Chinese ship. They were told that there were divers in the water. They apparently steered towards our Navy vessel. I think it was the Toowoomba, and pinged it for whatever reason. The sailors came out of the water, probably ears ringing a bit, I would have thought, but it can have much harsher effects on the body as well, I'm led to believe. So fingers crossed that those guys are okay and nothing bad is happening. There is one other thing I want to talk about before we get into H2 tonight, and I just want you to have a think about it. If you regularly give blood, if you are unjabbed and you regularly give blood, you might want to think about storing your own. At the moment, if you require surgery and you're getting blood out of a blood bank, it's whatever the blood bank ordains to keep after what it sells, by the way. Our blood banks have a huge multi-decade long deal with blood product company that we're all familiar with. I won't mention here, but you have seen the paperwork on what they do with adrenochrome. They have a blood product deal with that company. So less than 10% of the blood that's donated actually goes back into a body. In this country, at any rate, it's used in all sorts of other areas. So don't be deceived by that. However, everybody who is giving blood and has been part of this farce, the jibbity jab, there are now bags full of this infected, if you like, blood. If you need surgery, you will get this blood. You don't really want that, I would have thought. So it is possible to take your own blood and store it. I'm looking deeper into the ways and places where you can do this, how long you can keep it for, because it doesn't have a finite lifetime, whether or not it's worthwhile storing your own blood, particularly if you are prone to needing surgeries or that kind of thing. If you know you're going to have surgery, do you want to store your blood before you go and have surgery? That way you've only got your blood going back into you. These are all things you should be considering if you are planning or expect to have surgery sometime in the future. If I were you, I would be trying to save a little bit of my own blood, which I will try and do. I'll look into see if there are places that will actually keep it and store it. Otherwise, you may need another bar fridge. Speaking of bar fridges, I've got to say I've been reaching for my fridge in celebration of a man named Tim Dwyer. I have done a bit over, just under 2,000 kilometres on petrol and hydrogen, I think now. And before I get in and start gushing, let me bring the man himself up. Good morning, sir, or good evening, sir. How are you?
Hi, Carl. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
But I am as excited as buggery over this. So for people who may not be over the saga so far, let's call it that, I left Brisbane in a bus that has a V10 petrol motor and 220 litres of LPG down the side of it as well. I managed to get 55 litres per 100 kilometres on the drive down to Adelaide, out of the LPG and averaged about 41 kilometres out of the petrol, although didn't run petrol very long through that trip, if I'm honest. Most of it was run on LPG. When we got to Adelaide, or north of Adelaide, where we fitted the H2 unit, I went from there down to Victor Harbour on LPG and hydrogen, and from there back over to Victoria before a certain brain fart caused another big fart in the engine, which blew a whole pile of very useful parts for the LPG system out of where they should live and into somewhere they shouldn't. That still hasn't been fixed. But I got over my nervousness of fixing a fuse and managed to get the hydrogen going again. And I left Melbourne and drove north up to the Murray, along the Murray, and down to Albury, where I fueled up. And from there, I headed over to the East Coast. And Tim, you and I had a bit of a discussion last night when I got Vince's spreadsheet to work. I'm staggered by the numbers. So bear in mind, folks, when we started, it was 55 litres on LPG per 100 kilometres and 41 on petrol. So my drive from Melbourne to Albury, let's call it, via Shepparton and along the Murray, I averaged 27.24 litres per 100 kilometres. 27.24. That's pretty flat, that drive, not a lot of big hills. I'm blown away with that. The next portion of the drive was quite hilly. So along the Hume, but then crossing over the Great Dividing Range and then getting along the Coastal Range circuit. I did 635 kilometres in that journey, and I did them at 33.2 litres per 100 kilometres. This is down from 41 without hydrogen working. Tim, really, 2 tanks of fuel in and a lot of hills in that second day, like a lot of hills, a lot of kicking back gears and riding up hills at 60 kilometres an hour. I could not be more blown away by the significant extension of kilometres that I'm travelling, the power that I'm getting, the torque that I'm developing. I am blown away. And you told me that it doesn't work very well on petrol.
Well, it's interesting, Carl. The unit itself was originally designed for diesel trucks, for Caterpillars, Cummins, Detroits, all those sorts of engines, pulling B-doubles and road trains. Now, as we went along, obviously, we tried it on anything and everything. And if it had an engine in it, we wanted to play with it. And so we did put it on a tiny little diesel, a little Citroen C4, like 1.2 litres. And then we put it on a V12 Cummins generator up in the gold mines. But when we put it on the petrol cars, what we found was that, I think, as I've spoken to you before and probably mentioned on one of these shows, that there's a formula of how much hydrogen you need per litre and per litre of fuel, whether it's petrol or diesel. And if it's petrol, it's one formula. If it's diesel, it's another formula. And it works better on diesel than it does on petrol. Now, the reason you're getting such a really brilliant result, and it's atypical, but it's the hydrogen is designed to pick up the inefficiency in the burn in the combustion chambers. So what happens is, in your engine, it's not a very efficient engine in its natural state. And so when we add the hydrogen into it, then we get the hydrogen acts like introducing a high octane fuel. So instead of having 91 or 95 unleaded in it, this is like having 105 octane in it.
Yeah,
and
right.
So you don't need as much fuel to get the energy as you would normally. And so the hydrogen system that we've got, it is it's an amazing little jigger. It really is, because
Oh,
in today's world, at fuel at $2 a litre, you don't have to save too much fuel to save a lot of money.
no,
And
no.
and the torque, the ease of driving. I know on my car, you probably wouldn't feel it so much in the bus, but if I pull out to pass a truck, you just pull out and it's gone. You just put your foot down and it bolts. It literally bolts. And the other thing, you may notice this, is when you take your foot off the throttle, it has a good run on. It still drives on. So you end up taking your foot off the throttle a lot earlier when you're coming to traffic lights or whatever, because it's going to continue to drive.
Yeah. And it's very comfortable and easy at that. Please don't think that, it's running away from you or that. It's nothing like that at all. It's a very easy, comfortable drive. And I'm learning a new way of driving, given that it's a big, heavy vehicle that I'm driving. You've got to approach hills in a certain way. And I'm aiming now for a certain rev range, not a certain speed. So I'm looking for that torque band, because I know that I'm developing much stronger torque, and I'm holding the taller gears for longer. So I'm setting my speed, if you like, and my revs by what I'm able to get best torque range going up a hill. But conversely, coming down a hill, I can lift off, and she will hold me at the speed that I set as well. So, it doesn't run away, it doesn't carry on doing anything weird like that. Somebody's just asked, mate, this question, Scott Miles, have you tried marine applications? Would it be safe to use on a blue ocean yacht?
Oh, yeah. Look, it's extremely safe. We've got it on a couple of cray boats and stuff like that. Now, there is a challenge. We big cat cruisers up in Queensland, going out to the reef, they wanted to fit hydrogen systems on their cats, and the Queensland government wouldn't allow that, because for it to go on the boat, the commercial boat that's carrying passengers, it had to be certified. And I said, no problem, send me the documents. Oh, no, we don't have any documents. I said, what do you mean you don't have any documents? It's got to be certified. Yes, but we don't have any paperwork to certify it. I said, well, then we can fit it to the boat. No, the boat can't operate until it's certified, but we don't have any certification. Right? Typical government, right?
Yeah.
However, if it's a private boat, ship, whatever, it's no different than any other vehicle, because it has a combustion engine in it. There's no storage of gas, so there can be no imminent explosion should all hell break loose. If there's even on the trucks, on the back of trucks, we've had our systems on several trucks that have been involved in rollovers and terrible accidents and stuff like that, and there's no explosion, there's no extra fire, there's no nothing. It's quite safe, it's quite inert in that response. So, yeah, it's safe on marine engines.
Now, what about using the higher octane fuels? By accident, more than by design, I rolled up at a Bowser that didn't have 91 on it, only had 95 or 98. So I chose 95, gave it half a tank full of that, basically mixed it in with the 91 that was left. Now, that was the run, essentially, the 635 Ks across the hills. So it was a mixture of fuels. I've put 210 litres in after that, and that's all 91. But I've put an octane booster in it. Now, is that like I'm not going to over heat the engine or do anything stupid to ask now, I suppose, but I kind of figured I wouldn't be.
Yeah, no. It won't create too much heat in the engine. It won't put too much pressure on the top of your pistons. None of that stuff. But what you're actually doing is sort of spending money unnecessarily with the octane boost, because the hydrogen is the octane boost. So,
That makes perfect sense. People have been When I've talked to people about running a hydrogen system, they all say, "Oh yeah, I've seen that. Oh yeah, I've seen this bloke in America who's running a whole hydrogen system." Well, no, that's not what I'm running, and that's not what you're producing. And there is a reason that nobody is mass producing whole hydrogen running vehicles, isn't there?
There certainly is. There was one bloke who did it, Stanley Myers, and anybody who's followed hydrogen knows what happened to good old Stanley. Stanley wasn't long for this earth, and they sorted him out pretty quick. You see, what happens is, yes, it can be done. Yeah, you can run your car 100% on hydrogen, pull the fuel tank out of the thing and put a 20-litre water bottle in there, and away you go. You're good to go. It'll work. There's a lot of work to do in calibrating the right amount of air to hydrogen then, because if you put too much oxygen or too much air in with the hydrogen, it'll burn too hot and melt the tops out of your pistons. But it can be controlled by the amount of oxygen going in. So what happens is that we took on this project in as much as that all we wanted to do was probably cut the fuel figure down by 15 to 20% for most people. And at that point, we wouldn't be hurting the oil companies too much, and we wouldn't be upsetting the government too much, we thought. And so that way we would still walk upon the earth, and we wouldn't have cement gumboots and all that sort of stuff. Now, it did...
An accidental explosion in the workshop, you know.
It did upset a few people along the way, and there was certain oil companies that weren't happy with what we were doing, and they made their unhappiness known to us, but that was just stiff pickies. So with this, the guys in America, they're running, there's a bloke over there, he's got a ute, and he's running his whole system, well, a pickup they call them over there. He's running his whole vehicle on hydrogen, but it is there's two of them actually. One of them is making it on demand, and from the little bit of research I've been able to do on those blokes, they've spent about $80,000 fitting that to the ute, right? There's another bloke who's built a complete engine with incredible pistons and rods and new bearings and crankshaft, like it's designed to run hydrogen, and he has a compressed hydrogen tank that takes up most of the back of the ute. And that is just on $1 million worth of ute. But you can't carry it in it because it's got a hydrogen tank in it. But he's there to prove a point that you can do it. However, what we do is the system in your bus is about the size of a shoebox.
Yep.
Right? Yep. And for 400 mil of water every 2,000 Ks, and to get, in your case, Carl, what are we saying, about 30% or something, wasn't
it? 38%, I think you worked it out at last night.
Yep, 38%, which, not everyone's going to get that because, as I mentioned earlier, that your engine's not a terribly efficient engine, so it's just picking up that loss. But to get that sort of efficiency for half a litre of water every 2,000 Ks, I think I'd prefer to do that than fight the oil companies and the government.
Yep. Good question here from Peter. Wants to know if we're going to run a HazChem diamond or something on the number plates to let people know that there's hydrogen in the system.
Yeah, Peter, we could. The interesting thing is that, with your normal petrol or diesel car, you've got a tank full of fuel. The only thing you have a notice for is LPG, and that's because it's a pressurised system. So even when the car's turned off or the truck's turned off, that pressurised tank of LPG is still sitting there pressurised. It's like a bomb. When the hydrogen is turned off, all there is water. And it's not pressurised. It's never pressurised. And so, in the case of an accident, most people, if they're in an accident, first thing that goes is the front of the car, the battery gets buggered, and the thing stops. there's no current to drive it. So all you've got then is a container of water. You might as well have your water bottle on the back seat.
Yeah, exactly right. It's very well. If you do a lot of Ks, it's very cheap to install and pays for itself very, very, very quickly. So where's the tipping point? I know you haven't installed it on Corinne's car, your wife's car, because she doesn't travel enough for it.
No. If you've got a vehicle and you're doing somewhere around about 20,000 Ks a year, it'll pay for itself. Corinne's car, I mean, it does a massive 5,000 Ks a year, right? It's just, that'll be retired after Christmas, that car. So that one will go in the shed as a keeper. And because it's done in 22 years, it's now done 117,000 Ks. So it's nearly worn out. We must put it in the shed and keep it, I think.
I think it should be on a pedestal there somewhere. We'll put it on blocks and polish it up. At some point, it will be in a museum.
Yes.
It's that kind of historic vehicle, I've got a feeling.
It still smells like a new car inside, really does. Yeah. So it's not worth putting on that. And look, if you're somebody with a caravan and living the dream, wandering the country, yeah, absolutely. If you're a tradie and working your ute pretty hard and you're driving it every day, absolutely. If you're just going backwards and forwards to work and stuff like that, keep in mind for the units, $3,400 as a Voice of Freedom special, and you can buy a hell of a lot of fuel for $3,400, right? But let's flip that a little bit. One of the things is today people are starting to keep their cars longer and longer and longer. Now, because of the way hydrogen reacts in the engine, your oil is going to be clean, even at the end of the oil change period. So your engines aren't going to be wearing out. So you'll be able to keep your car for an extended period of time. My previous Commodore did just on 700,000 Ks before I retired it out of a V6. And I would change the oil every 30,000 Ks, whether it needed it or not.
Wow.
Instead of
whether it needed it or not.
Instead of every 10,000 Ks, because the oil never got dirty, why good oil,
and that's the thing in those Commodores particularly. We used Commodores in the limo game extensively, particularly Caprices, and they had to be serviced every 10,000 kilometres because if you block up one of the little oil
galleries,
just one of these tiny little things, you get a check engine light comes on and you cannot get rid of it, come hell or high water. So the thing will still run fine, but because it has this tiny little bit of build-up, but you get none of that with this. It's just spectacular. Now, Christoph wants to know, do you have a system that erases PFT and RGE? I don't know what the hell that means.
Okay, so what he wants is DPF, diesel particulate filter, right? So the diesel particulate filters, right? Now, on a diesel, what they've done is they've put diesel particulate filters in. Instead of fixing up the dirty engine at combustion, they put this ridiculously expensive big filter in the exhaust pipe that captures all the unburnt diesel particulates.
That black smoke that we always used to see coming out of a diesel,
it
still comes out. It just gets caught.
And then what it's designed to do is it burns all that off inside this filter. And so all that emission still goes out the back, just it's all burnt at a higher temperature. And then what happens is after a while, the diesel particulate filters don't operate as good. They get clogged up. You've got to get them cleaned. And if you hold on to your Toyota or whatever you've got with a DPF in it, at around about 400,000 Ks, you need to buy a new one. And the new one is around about $4,000. not much different than the price of a hydrogen unit. So if we put a hydrogen unit on it, there's no diesel particulate left to get captured in the filter. So we fix the problem in the combustion chamber, not after the combustion chamber.
Yeah.
So, yes, so the DPF, and what was the other one there? Exhaust gas recirculation, I think it was, EGR.
RGE or
Yep.
RGR.
So recirculating gases. So again, that will still recirculate the exhaust gas, and Cummins engines were notorious for these EGR systems fouling up on them. And again, with the hydrogen, it'll still recirculate, but there's nothing there to burn because we've burnt it all the first time in the combustion chamber. And the other thing too, with large diesel engines, and Cummins were particularly prone to this, they would get a buildup of carbon around the rings on the pistons, and they'd start using a lot of oil. Well, as soon as we fitted the hydrogen unit to it, it'd burn all that carbon out of there and it'd stop burning oil. Okay.
Particulate filters will certainly be a thing of the past. I don't know what George does for a living, but George 350 wants to know if it's possible to install this on a cruise liner. Now, I don't know if he's building the next Titanic. George might be a pseudonym.
Yep. George, look, we can increase and decrease the size of these things to fit pretty much any engine in the world. Now, those cruise liner engines have got pistons the size of your kitchen table, and we need a fair bit of gas. So we have to, again, increase the electronics, redesign a few bits and pieces, but it is just a matter of building the system and replicating what we've got to produce enough gas to go through those engines. So yeah, we can fit it on cruise liners and container ships, because a lot of the container ships now aren't allowed to, or any of them aren't allowed to use bunker oil because it's too dirty. But if we had hydrogen on there, the bunker oil would be just fine.
Yeah, and the engines in the boats would be a lot cleaner for it.
Absolutely, and a lot quieter.
Yeah. All the things that people seem to be wanting out of, mechanical things in this day and age.
Yes,
simply amazing. So I think we've covered off most of the questions about it for the moment that I can see. Would it need a? I guess it says here, would it need one on each cylinder? No, you wouldn't need a different or a hydrogen generator on each cylinder. You just have a bloody big hydrogen generator.
Yeah, and the beautiful part about the diesel engines, I mean, however many turbos you've got, that's how many units you need. So on a V8 diesel, on like a big V8 diesel as a genset, for instance, they've got 2 turbos. So we set up a hydrogen system for each turbo. And as the hydrogen goes in on the low pressure side of the turbo and mixes with the air, it's completely mixed, and every cylinder gets the right amount. So yeah,
mate, absolutely stunning. So your system for folks through Voice of Freedom is available to them at a discounted rate of, like you said, $3,400. Thank you very much for making it available to the people.
Thank you guys, because it's my pleasure to keep the freedom movement moving.
Yeah. Well, that's the plan. Absolutely. Now we'll talk briefly about the other thing, I guess, that's on people's minds at the moment. After the speech on Remembrance Day at the Shrine, have you had much feedback?
Just a bit. Yeah. The emails got a bit excited there for a few days, and a lot of people, and even like a lot of people that weren't there that saw the clip that you recorded. I put that out. You put it out. I don't know. How many views did you get on yours, Carl? Do you know?
I haven't, but hang on. Give me a minute here. I'll just go and have a quick look. I can probably bring it up and find it. Okay, so at the moment it's been seen about 3,500 times, I guess.
Okay, and it had about 2,500 on my site, and somebody else grabbed it and put it on a BitChute site, and that went to a much bigger audience, but he got about 4,500 views, right?
Yep.
And what's exciting is that there's so many people that said, look, I just want to help. What do I have to do? How do I help? What do I do to help you move this forward? And they are the best questions you could ever get. Now, don't get me wrong. There's been a couple of people come back and less than pleased or excited about the process or whatever and have their own views, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. People are entitled to their own view. Good Lord, that's what we're about. But it is really, really exciting. And so where we're at the moment is this weekend coming. We've put out the next video that we've got and explaining a bit more about it. And we've attached a on our website on Our True Australia. Oops, you're not seeing that too good. There it is. We've got a A4 page. It's got 3 questions that people can cut each section off. And we've asked people to go and letterbox drop that next weekend, this weekend coming. And we want it all done on that weekend so as that we can then start the talkback radio side of it saying, hey, I got this in my letterbox. What's this people's initiated referendum? And start to move it up on the talkback shows and get a bit of interest out there that way. Now, what's interesting about that, I was on the phone today to a lady. She rang and she said, am I limited to how many I can put out? And I said, well, depends on how far you want to walk. Like it's entirely up to you. Well, her and her husband have set aside from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday.
Right.
And I said, well, how many have you printed? She said, I've printed 500 pages.
Bloody hell.
That's 15. So she got 1,500 flyers to put out, right? So she went through a ream of paper, right?
Yeah.
Now, the emails that we sent the link out on and stuff like that, I think we sent that out to 800 emails on our list, and a couple of those people we know have got, there's one lady particularly in New South Wales, we know that she'll put it out, and she's got 2,500 people on her email list. Now, we can't expect all of those people to do it. I understand that.
No.
But if we work on 10%, and if every one of them put out 100 on average, that is a lot of pamphlets hitting letterboxes, right? So our platform works like this. This is the strategy I've got at the moment. I know Christmas is coming, and as soon as December 1 clicks over, everybody goes into Minyama mode and thinks Santa's going to turn up the next day. Like, I've got Christmas shows on, I've got to do this, the kids have got to go here. So I get that. So what we're doing is we're just starting to get the conversation ticking. This is why we're going to do this letterbox drop now, right?
Yep.
And it's only designed, these are questions designed to get people asking questions. Right? So on one of the questions, I'll read them to you if you've got a minute. The Australia's people's initiated referendum for the reformation of Australia, bringing Australia back under the lawful method of constitutional government and out from under the corporate commonwealth that is separate by law to the actual non-corporate commonwealth. Right?
Not confusing at all.
No, not confusing at all. Right? Now, let me grab this up here. It'll be easier for me to do it this way. Where did I go with that, Carl? Where did I put it? Some questions. There we go. Some questions to ask your friends and your family. Did you know that not one member of the federal parliament has sworn the lawful constitutional oath or affirmation? If they don't have the lawful right to sit in office, why are you paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars per year plus pension? Right? That's a good question. If they're sitting there illegally, why are we paying them? Right? How did you feel about not having a proper crown title for your land, therefore no lawful proof of ownership? How do you feel about the United Nations statement that when Australia becomes a republic, all land ownership comes under the United Nations control? And did you know that Australians send near to $500 million a year to the UN? And this last one, I like this one. If there were a way to replace all taxes with a 5% flat tax, meaning you get to keep 95% of your income, would you vote yes for that? And would you vote yes for less government interference in your life? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust your state and federal government? You got to love that, don't you?
I think that's a telling number.
Yeah. So these are the sorts of questions that we're putting out there in the letterboxes. Now, I understand most people are going to take a quick glance at it and chuck it in the bin. But there'll be some of them that'll grab those and they'll be thinking, must ask George down the pub on Friday night what he thinks of this. Did he get one of these? Right? And I just want that conversation just to start ticking over, because then what we're going to do is during the Christmas period, we're really going to get stuck into strategizing the 6 questions of the referendum. Now, think about this. I want to talk about the referendum. And I got this book here that sort of explains the referendums. All right. So if we go to section 128, which is where the referendums are, so here we go. Alteration of the Constitution. This Constitution shall not be altered except in the following manner. Now it says here, the proposed law for the alteration, therefore, must be passed by the absolute majority of each House of Parliament and not less than 2 nor more than 6 months after its passage through the Houses. The proposed law shall be submitted into each state to the electors qualified to vote for the election of members of the House of Representatives. Okay, let's think about this. The proposed law. Who proposes the law? There's a question we've got to ask. Because if there is going to be a proposed law, somebody has to propose the law.
To put it forward, yep.
To put it forward. Okay. Then it is up to the Houses of Parliament to pass that proposed law so as it can go forward to a referendum. We got a problem. The proposed law can be proposed and should be proposed by the people. Right? Now, the reason I say that is because there's this funny little bit at the start of the book, whereas if we get up here to the start of it, whoops, gone too far. An act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia. Now, it starts off with, whereas the people. It doesn't say whereas the Prime Minister. It doesn't say whereas the Governor-General. It does not say whereas the Queen. It does not say whereas the Parliament. It says whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, blah, 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 relying on the blessings of Almighty God, have agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth under the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland and under the Constitution hereby established. So therefore, the most supreme authority in this country is the people. So we, the people, can put forward a proposed law. Now, the problem we've got is we'd love to be able to put a proposed law to the Parliament. However, we don't have one.
No, we have no way of doing it.
No, because we do not have the legitimacy of office in Parliament. There is not one legitimate politician sitting in the House. Now, I've got my next video is going to be interesting. I got this picture that I made up today, and it's got a picture of Parliament House. I'll try and describe it to you because I can't show it to you. And on the flagpole, there's a big United Nations symbol. And there's an arrow going off to the left to the WHO symbol, and an arrow going off to the right to the World Economic Forum. And from the WHO and the World Economic Forum, there's an arrow pointing to the front door. Under the United Nations symbol in the middle, in between those two other symbols, it says, is this the United Nations bitch? Right? Now, the United Nations, through the WHO and the World Economic Forum, are controlling what we call the Parliament. Now, we know we don't have a legitimacy of Parliament. We know that because we don't have a legitimate Governor-General to form a damn Parliament. And so how do we then put forward a proposed law to have it passed by non-parliamentarians to be okayed by a non-Governor-General? So what the hell do we do? What's the purpose of even doing this? Well, my theory is this. They didn't listen to us when we wrote them 1 million letters because they don't care. They didn't listen to us when we went to Canberra and assembled en masse by the millions because they don't care. And if we come to them with a proposed law, they're not going to listen to us because they don't care. Right? They have no care for us. And so the whole idea here is that they stole the country, Carl, by the stroke of a pen, by altering the statutes to circumvent the Constitution. The Constitution still sits there perfectly intact, but they just weaseled their way around it with the smart-ass legal terminology. Yep. And so my theory is, okay, people of Australia, if you've had enough, if you've really had enough, then let's run this referendum. We can do it. It'll take us a lot of money, right? We will raise a lot of money, and we will raise enough money to get this done. And it will be in the millions of dollars. And I don't have it swinging in my back pocket, but I reckon we can find a few people that are, on board with us and that have got some excess dollars. So in doing this, we would run a referendum, and it would be done by the people. It would be ran by the people. And we would then set up a legitimate Parliament outside of the corporation. And because the Constitution gives us the common law rights of the United Kingdom, that gives us every right known to mankind on earth. We are void of no rights. It's every right known to mankind. And when we can do this, when we have the will of the people, because it's no good me standing up there saying, well, I'm going to take over the country and I'll be king for a day. That's bullshit. I'm not doing that, right? Yeah. It has to be the will of the people. And then the will of the people will stop the money flow to the corporates, and they can't operate without the money flow. You see, here's one of the key things in this, Carl, is that, again, in that book, it says that only the Crown can create coins. Yep. The Crown's the only one that can mint coins. Well, they are not the Crown, and they have no Crown authority. They have no royal assent of any sort.
They just make us
They
believe
just-
they have.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if we then ran our referendum under our constitution, we took up Parliament, and the Parliament would be elected just like any proper Parliament. One vote, one man, one woman. Right? And so let's say you and I are both contesting a seat in Oodna Whoop Whoop, and whoever gets the most votes at the end of the day, that's the representative. It doesn't get passed up and up and up and counted a dozen times. That's rubbish, right?
Yeah.
And all roads must lead back to either Liberal or Labor. That's what you call a cartel. Right? And so is it going to be easy to work out? Hell no. This is going to be a monster of a job. It really is.
And I imagine some resistance could be expected from certain interested parties.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. And this is why I put out on that other video that, you know, my heart's in really good shape. I take medication for nothing. I've driven millions of kilometres. I've not had a crash. I don't take drugs. I've never taken drugs. So, you know, if something happens to me, you will know damn well that it was no accident, right? And somebody else then has to pick up the bat and run. But look, I'm excited by this because some of the stuff, and I can't put it out there yet, but some of the stuff I'm getting back from people of the atrocities that are happening to them in the courts, right? You know, the UN flags are, I know, they're flying on the buildings, right?
We've seen them all over recently. Yeah, they're just getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
Putting them in strange places.
And, you know, when somebody goes into court and gives the court fair notice that they're going to need 4 hours to produce their evidence, and when they get into court, the court says, I'm sorry, you've got 10 minutes, hurry up. And, you know, all this sort of stuff. This is not Australia. This is not who us old farts, grew up having and believing and knowing. This is some weird ass science fiction show.
Yeah.
And we got to stop it.
We do. Graham's mentioning here about how much it's going to cost. We sort of covered that. Yes, we know it's going to cost a lot of money. The Australian federal government spent $430 million of our dollars on a failed yes vote campaign. So what hope does that give us of making an impact on the Australian public? I don't think we need anything like $430 million. I think we have a very interested Australian public who are open to hearing, potential new solutions to a problem that is going to be the end of us if we don't do something about it.
Absolutely. And, you know, they are interested. They really are interested. And when you start talking to people about particularly their tax situation, right? Imagining, see, a couple of people have said, yes, but you can't get out from under the debt, right? The international debt that these dogs have put us under is it's $1.8 trillion. Now, let me explain that. People, you hear this word billion and million and trillion. Nobody stops to think about it. Now, we know that what $1 million is, right? But $1 billion is 1,000 million. 1 billion is 1,000 million dollars. $1 trillion is 1,000 billion. And we are $1.8 trillion in debt.
Well, I might bring this up at this point.
Yep. That is
the Australian debt clock.
And look how fast it's growing at over $100,000 probably every 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. I call it 20 seconds just to be generous.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
In looking at that, Carl, think about this. That debt equates to over $640,000 for every man, woman and child alive in Australia today and growing at $100,000 every 20 seconds. Now, you can't pay your damn mortgage off today, let alone the burden of another $640,000.
Yeah.
So here's what part of our proposal is, and I've got to get this point across to people. I have to make Australia well aware of that number, so as if we turn around and worked on, and as I think I mentioned on that video in Melbourne, that I went to a seminar some 20 odd years ago, a conference actually for a week in a foreign land in Asia on taxation and offshore investments and banking and all this sort of stuff because of what we were doing at the time. And one of the guys there, he explained that there was if we ran a 5% flat tax, but every company had to pay the tax, there's no getting out of the tax. You see, there's the companies here in Australia today that provide your electricity and all sorts of stuff. They don't pay any tax. Zero. Absolute zero tax.
Yeah.
On billions of dollars profit per year. And that's just the sweetheart deal they've got. And there's miners that do the same and all this sort of stuff. But if we all had to pay the 5%, that's it. Your wages tax is gone, petrol tax is gone, sales tax is gone, GST is gone, everything else is gone, 5%. But everybody has to play the game. Now, in doing that, we would raise in the first year, based on the Australia's turnover of dollars, we would raise $4.6 trillion in revenue in the first year. Therefore, we could wipe that debt out in the first year and owe the international money men, the robber barons, no money. We would be free. All right? Now, I'm not saying they're going to like it because the robber barons like to have us under the Rothschild control, right? And people who come out from under the Rothschild control, like what you were showing before with Gaddafi, they didn't like that, right? However, it's either stay there and suffer the consequences and literally become a slave nation, or stand up, do what we've got to do, pay them back their money, and protect ourselves accordingly. And in doing that, what Australia can do is on the second year of take, it would go from 4.6 trillion, because now you've got more money to spend. You're going to spend it. You're going to improve your house. You're going to buy another car. You're going to go on a holiday. You're going to eat better food. So our next year's take would go from 4.6 trillion to 5.8 trillion. Right? Now, think about this. If we had our nation back under our control, because there's a let me digress a little. There's a case in America called the Clearfield Doctrine that once a government has given up its right, its sovereignty to make money and gone to corporate paper, it can never revert back to legitimate government ever again. And that's what this lot have done. And so we would then have to create our own new currency based on all the mineral wealth that this country's got, from gold, silver, oil, uranium, coal, the whole lot. That would base our money. And of course, we'd also throw in there a 5-year average of the agricultural take, being the wool, the wheat, the corn, the grape, everything. And in doing that, we would have the lowest tax rate in the world. We would have the highest, the strongest currency in the world. And we would have the highest standard of living in the world. And in doing this, we could afford to have a proper military. Unfortunately, what we've got at the moment is an underfunded, and my research shows me that if war came to our shores, we have enough ammunition here in Australia to last until sunset on the first day.
Yeah.
After that, we're out of ammo. So this country has been set up to just fall apart and be taken over. And I just can't, in all good consciousness, I can't sit still and try and ignore that And, you know, there's 1,000 problems. There's the pedophilia. There's the councils are running amok. There's the roads are falling apart. There's the chemtrails. There's every aspect of what's going on out there. However, what we're looking at is in that place in Canberra, it's full of lunatics with boxes of matches running around causing all sorts of bushfires that everybody's focused on. Well, my theory is, okay, let's get rid of the lunatics with the box of matches. Then we don't have all these small issues. We've sorted that out with one foul swoop called a referendum.
Yeah.
But we need help.
We do need a lot of help. A lot of help. And we're not going to get it from mainstream media or anywhere else. So talk about it, folks. Talk about it amongst yourselves. And Tim, maybe you can supply Vince with the details of those flyers to be printed out, and we can get them up on the Voice of Freedom website. People will be able to download the package and print that out themselves. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great, Carl. That'd be great. And
right.
But no, mate, look, between the hydrogen and trying to get the referendum thing moving along and keeping my veggie garden growing, we're a little busy over here.
Hopefully we can keep you going with the hydrogen generator for a little while.
Yeah, mate, that's good.
There's much interest. You're going to hear from Pete, the skipper in Ingham, in the not too distant future. He's very keen to get the system on his big 4-wheel drive up there, and I believe he's going to be the test or the crash test dummy, if you like, for a lot of folks up that end of the world. They use a lot of diesel on a lot of different machines up there, particularly cane harvesters, could I just say. Tractors and all that sort of stuff. So there'd be huge savings. I was talking to a bloke the other day. He's a contract wheat harvester, but he spends $18,000 a week on diesel. Now, if he could get these systems put on his 6 headers and other bits of equipment, it's got to save him maybe $10,000 a week. Yeah,
that's right. And you know, when you do the numbers on this stuff, like on our website, there's a guy there from years back. He had a road train running Brisbane to Perth, Perth to Brisbane every week. That's what he would do, right? In 1 year, he saved $100,000 in fuel.
Wow. It's pretty hard to knock back or ride.
And the truck unit was worth $8,000. So for an investment of $8,000, he saved $92,000.
Wow. Spectacular. And then the next year it was all cream. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And but Carl, there's a lot of stuff out there on the websites with guys got plastic jars and glass bottles and all sorts of things. Let me put it to you this way. You're free to go and purchase whatever you like. I mean, truly, you can. But understand this, that if it does not have electronic controls that restrict the amperage and the current, all you've got is a kettle that will actually boil the water, create steam, and pump it into your engine. That's what you're going to have. And you can buy them, and there's but if it does not have the current control that we've got, and that's what makes our system work so well, because without getting too detaily, we take 12 or 24 volts off the engine or the battery, and we break that back down to 3 volts, and so therefore there's very little wattage, and wattage is heat. And so that's how we do it, and it costs us a fortune to do it. So if you want to replicate what I'm doing, you're more than welcome. But we're nearly $1.8 million in expenditure on this unit now. So have a go, guys.
Good luck. That's why you're always smiling. Smart enough not to patent it. Let them know how you did it.
No, absolutely. There's no patent on this.
Yeah.
But there is a chip in the box that you can't read. I guarantee you can't read it. It's got a 650-bit military encryption on it, and if you try and take it off the board to put it on a chip reader, it just poops itself, and that's the end of it.
Thank you. Good stuff. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I love having you on the show, mate.
Hey, mate, where are you off to next?
in the next few days, I will be in and around Sydney, and then I'm hopeful of popping into the Cali, and then further north, I'm not sure, Coffs Harbour, Port Macquarie. There's probably half a dozen places I'll stop before I get close to home yet. There's also a big weather event that's happening north of me at the moment too, so we'll have to wait and see what that brings. That could put a few little blockages in the system. I prefer to stay somewhere where it's dry and blue skies at the moment if I can. So we'll just see what happens.
Top of a hill would be good.
Yeah, top of a very big hill. Exactly right. All right, mate. Thanks very much. We'll talk again when I've finished the trip back to Brisbane. I'll have some more figures for you.
All right. Hey, listen, Carl, I just want to say thank you so much for promoting the H2 unit. It has been a really good, and I'm fitting the units and talking to people about them and stuff. We've met some really good people again. We fitted a unit for one of your guys from down south down here, Michael, the other day with his Isuzu. And so thank you, Michael. And there's others, you know, and it's just great. And we really do appreciate the sales. We really do. And, you know, it's a joint effort, you know, and small business helping everyday Australians, that's what it's all about. So that's what we're here for.
Mate. That's what the Voice of Freedom is about, promoting Australian businesses. If you're a small business and you want some help being promoted, come and talk to me. I'm very happy to put you on. And hopefully we can give you some of this success.
Carl, can I put one more plug in for another business?
Yeah, sure.
There's a little takeaway about to open up at Wonga Beach, up north of Port Douglas. Right. Now, Wonga Beach takeaway hasn't been real flash over the last few years. However, it has new owners going into it this weekend. I believe they're opening up. But what they've got is quite a unique menu. And one of the unique menu pieces they have is a hamburger called a bull boar. And this hamburger has the recipe from the old Swiss Italians out of Victoria that came to the goldfields.
Yeah.
And we got the recipe for this, and they're normally a sausage, but they're making it into a hamburger patty. And my son is the guy opening up the takeaway in partnership with his mate who's a chef at one of the major resorts there. And they brought this chef out from Europe years ago to cook at the resort. And this guy, when he ate that bull boar patty, he said nowhere in the world has he ever eaten a beef patty that was so full of flavour that he just had to cook another patty.
Right.
Now, this is going to be at Wonga Beach. So keep your eye open for the bull boar hamburgers.
The bull boar hamburgers at Wonga Beach, just north of Port Douglas.
Yep.
Beautiful part of the world, Wonga Beach. Drove through it twice or three times, the Daintree and back. So, all right, next trip up there, I'll be calling in. I'm nothing if not a burger aficionado, and there's a certain physical trainer who's in the chat at the moment who'll be horrified that I'm saying that, but I love a burger.
All right, guys. All right,
mate.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, everybody.
Good on you. Tim Dwyer, what a bloody legend he is, hey? Lovely bloke to have a chat to. And I got to say, I couldn't be more excited about the figures that we're pulling for the bus out of the hydrogen unit. I'm staggered. I never expected it to be anything like what we're getting, particularly early on. I knew that we would probably be needing to burn a bit of the residual crap out of the motor before we started getting some good numbers. But, well, it looks pretty wild. Well, it's been an interesting chat tonight, hasn't it, folks? So I'm going to start. I start a few of these little chats. Now, I don't know what Guru's problem is. I don't even know if he's still in the chat. Frankly, I don't care. Seriously pissed off. I'm behind this North stuff. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know nothing of North other than what North came in and said in here the other night. I don't appreciate Dave, if that is you, because there are so many trolls around, who cares? don't appreciate you coming in and demanding stupid things, and then you want to come in here and make demands. I don't understand where the hell you think you are. I'm really surprised. But then I wasn't, because this one came up. Do you have any idea who the hell I am? Well, Dave, you've got my number. So if that is you, call me. We can have a chat. But don't start this bullshit. The North stuff, I could care less about it. Somebody woke me up with it the other night, and I was more concerned that somebody was trying to raise money on the back of my name or Beck Freedom's name or everybody else's name that was listed in that. I don't frankly care right now who it was, just that I'm not part of it. And that was the whole reason for that live. Now, I don't know who started it. I don't know where it came from. If I've inadvertently said something, well, I think you've got the wrong end of the stick. I'd never thought you're North or you're anything to do with North or you flipped or Bosie flipped or anybody's done any flipping. I mean, I think you're both bloody insane sometimes, but I'm sure you think the same of me. So, but no, I've never once said anything about you flipping. And in fact, the story was exactly the opposite of that. It had nothing to do with Dave Guru flipping. It was more about Bosie flipping to save Dave Guru, I think, if memory serves. I could be wrong with that too, because I paid this much attention to that little piece of information. And then when it got blown up, however it did, somebody trying to raise money for this prick, I thought I'd better say something about it, because I'm not interested in it unless if you've got absolute proof of what you speak, people, then I'm really keen on seeing it. But knowing both the gentlemen concerned, maybe not very well, but knowing them enough, it just doesn't ring true. However, it is interesting to see all the trolls come over, and I'm gathering that if this is Dave, he's very unhappy. Very unhappy. Get on my stream, you prick, while I'm in the middle of my show. Is that right? I don't know who the hell you think you are, Dave, if that really is Dave. Is that the kind of people that we want running the country, folks? People who go off, carry on, get in a chat, turn into trolls? I wonder what sort of relevance there is. I have no interest in going into your chat. I haven't even looked to see if you've sent me a link, so maybe I should. That might be an indication of whether or not this is actually even Dave, because you would have sent me a link, wouldn't you? Oh, that's weird. My email's not opening up now. Well, isn't that strange? Curiouser and curiouser. I'll have to reboot the computer before. Oh, hang on. Let me just see if I've got a link in my phone. I'll check that email. That'll probably tell me whether or not this is Dave, because if he's calling for me to be in his show or in his stream or whatever the hell you call it, then I would think that he would send that to me. Right now, it doesn't look like I've got anything from him. So possibly just another troll, folks, not even Dave. Oh, hang on. New dump. Let me have a look. No. So I'm guessing, unless he sent it to an old email address that I'm not checking, and I'm checking now. So, no, I'm reckoning that that's probably just a troll trying to start fun. But who cares? I'm not really interested one way or the other. That sort of abuse, that sort of carry on in somebody else's show screams of, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I'm afraid I'm not looking. Do I have a turbo on the bus? No, I do not have a turbo on this vehicle. If I did have one, it would have to be like that big, very big turbo. And to be honest, I don't know where the hell you'd put it. There's not a lot of room. It probably would help it though. she'd probably go a little bit better with a turbo. But I've got to say, particularly getting off the mark, going through the torque ranges in each gear, it's just the performance is through the roof. So if you're looking for a bit of a fuel saving item, and you particularly are running diesels and you run a lot of diesel, you've got big fuel bills, I couldn't recommend this system to you highly enough. Just go and give it a look. I think that would be the best thing. Go and give it a look, try it out for yourself, and you might be able to extrapolate that into further parts of your business. So let me have a look, see if there's any more. Oh, there you go. Do you have the water engine from Stop the Rot? So yeah, I'm thinking they're trolls. I didn't take North seriously at all, Aurora. I don't know what you're talking about. And I haven't believed anything without proof. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop making shit up. You fucking... I'm not going to enter into it because it's what they want. So I'm going to leave the North conversation here. Somebody calling themselves North wanted $20,000 to tell news of Bosie apparently flipping or talking to ASIO and flipping and becoming some kind of a tattletale on the rest of the freedom movement to save Guru. That was the story. All right? Did I believe it then? No, I didn't believe it then. Do I believe it now? No, I still don't believe it now. If you go back and watch the show, you'll see how little I believed it, because I flipped around his request for $20,000 and said, yes, I'll take your $20,000 and hear your story. I was making a joke of it, but maybe some people's humor is a little less able to pick that sort of shit up. I have no idea who North is, but North came in on the back of 3 other trolls that night who usually would be expected to be found in Stop the Rot's chat pages or possibly on a Cooker Twitter page. Haven't had him in for a while, so it was a bit of fun, and I'm sorry for those folks who found it a bit difficult for me, or I was not fast enough to kick a lot of them out soon. But we'll get more at it. Clearly, my moderators are off doing other things tonight, and I have a sneaking suspicion I know exactly what one of them is doing. So we'll have a bit of fun with that ourselves. But no, did I ever think? No, I don't think anything like that. I've not seen proof for it. And Aurora, you're clearly more stupid than I give you credit for, because if you'd have watched that video, I said exactly that. I haven't accused anybody of anything. And if I did, it was a mistake or a slip of the tongue, and would be in complete difference to everything else I said in that chat. So I'll go back and have a look at it. But if I got something wrong, then I apologize. But I haven't accused Dave of anything. I haven't accused Bosie of anything. What I see out of this, if it is Dave and the rest of them, I see this as a cry for help, a cry for more bloody people to go over and have a look. So, yeah. And I don't care enough about Stop the Rot to bother. Okay? I just don't. I haven't heard anything come out of there in a while that's anything great earth-shattering. Mind you, I say the same of myself. We are where we are with this whole thing. They're off running their own little campaign in insulation of everybody else. And apparently, if you listen to Bosie, nobody else can be listened to. Only he and the once solely trusted Guru Graham. They're the only people in this movement to be trusted, apparently, according to the dictator himself. So I'll let you deal with that, because ultimately he's talking to you. So if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. But, you know, somebody calling themselves Stop the Rot could well be Cooker Watch. But believe it or not, I've had some very good conversations with Cooker Watch. In fact, I think now it's public knowledge. She's been posting she's recovering from breast cancer. So, you know, I hope she gets better. I hope everything goes well. I genuinely wouldn't wish that on anybody. So as long as we go forward, lines of communication are open. That's all that's required. And whoever this person is pretending to be Dave from Stop the Rot, I don't care what you think. I don't care. You're trying to start something where there is nothing. You're trying to be divisive. And the only reason I've let you go off like you have in the chat tonight is so I could point this out right now. You, whether you are Dave or not, are trying to create a division between Dave and I. It's not going to happen. Okay? And we're not welded at the hip by any stretch of the imagination, but I respect Dave. All right? We don't talk very often. But if I feel there is something worthy of talking to him about, I will pick up the phone and talk to him. And I'd like to think he would me. My main feeling with that most of the time is he rings when he wants something. He doesn't ring up for a chat anymore. And that's fine. I don't care. Never did. I'm here for one reason, and that's for you. I don't care about the other people in the freedom movement because, for the most part, I'm pretty separate from them. Not because I want to be or whatever. It's just how this business is. I approach what I do differently to what they do. The Cooker Watchers, the Stop the Rotters, are emotional. They're very hooked in emotionally to what they're talking about and how they present. I would like to think that I am less emotional in that way, in that regard. And I would like to think that I'm a little more broadly balanced. But that's all. I still have my particular bents and I still support a great deal of what people will term tin hat theory. But that's because I've done the research. That's because I've been down the rabbit holes and I've not found anyone who can pour shit down that rabbit hole and fill it up and say, no, that's not real. I go in with an open mind, but I never go in with a mind that is locked in place. I want you to try and convince me you're right. Show me. I'm open for it. But don't use little arguments. Use well-researched ones because I'm going to rebut them with well-researched ones. And occasionally, I'll get it wrong, probably more than occasionally. But then, so will you. So we're all making shit up here as we're going along. We're trying to do the best we can with limited information, with limited understanding, and with limited help from those that are supposedly in the business of the freedom movement. At the moment, they all seem to be caught up in whatever it is they're doing and how important it all is. I see Bosie's got a constitution he's written and is going to put it forward to the people next year at some stage. Maybe he hasn't written the constitution yet. Maybe he's going to actually let the people write a line or two in it. I don't know. But I would be very interested to hear where the starting point is, or is he just going to present us with the new constitution that he's written? So, you know, I don't know. That's a question going forward I'd like answered, but Bosie doesn't talk to me. Bosie only talks to, you know, Governor General Guru. And that's fine. So get on there and talk. Tell us how that's going to work exactly, because, you know, I'm very keen. Yeah, Redneck Rumbler. Hello, ASIO. No, I won't. Hello, ASIO. There are a lot of people in this business who think that they're so important that the nation's security agencies are interested in them. They might be shocked to learn that a lot of the nation's security industry couldn't give two shits about what we say or do. There are times where they do, I'm sure, but by and large, they don't care because they know that most of the people aren't going to stand up and do anything about it. This is just me preaching into the night to, however many you are, lonely people sitting at home. That's the way they'll write this off. So all we can do is keep doing, keep spreading, keep hitting the like button if you can, folks. If there is one on the channel you happen to be watching, if there is a subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. That would be really helpful. Although from what I'm told, there is no subscribe button on a number of the YouTube channels anymore. You can still subscribe at Rumble though, and you'll always find the show there, particularly when they take this one off the air. So yeah. Angela, yes, water off a duck's back. Yeah, it is. I'm not upset, worried, or perturbed at all. Couldn't care less. And I actually don't know whether I don't think that's Guru, but if it is, then this is the way to contact me, my friend, not by, throwing a tanty in my chat, because that just makes you look really, really childish. If it is, in fact, you. So, yeah. And I tell you what, I don't even care enough to send the message to find out if it really was him. This North thing is nothing. This is something that is being contrived by someone to draw some kind of a wedge. Now, I would be remiss in not reporting it, but when the whole thing blew up the other day with the Telegram appeal for $20,000 so this prick could come out and tell us everything he knew. Well, he told us everything he knew. When I called him out in the chat, I said, yeah, give me 20 grand, or better still, keep your 20 grand and be a real decent human being and tell us what you think we need to know, rather than offering a bribe or wanting a bribe for it. So that's where I left North. If they do have any information, they wanted a bribe for it, which means they're not the kind of person I'm going to be dealing with right from the outset. It also makes me doubt from the very first syllable that came out of their fingertips everything that came out afterwards, right? Because there is the bribe they wanted to tell us what they supposedly knew. Then there is the deep lack of silence since I called them out and said, well, send me the proof. I'll turn the bus around. I'll come to you right now. Offer's still there. Where's the proof? All right? Because trust me, I will come. We will discuss it. I'll show your proof. But if you don't have it, you won't like the person that turns up on your doorstep at all. So don't play games. If you want to help us find the truth, then by all means, get it out there. Start your own channel. Be a hero. Because it sounds like that's what some of you want to be. Me, not so much. Not after that. Couldn't care less. I want to make sure that we live through this, that our kids live through this, that our grandkids get a chance to live and prosper going forward. Not be slaves. Not have everything that we've enjoyed in our lives taken from us and taken from them, to a point where they never even knew it existed. That's what's coming, as sad as it is. All right. So, no, Ellen, I'm not buying into the bullshit. And I'm not buying into the bullshit. Don't care enough to buy into the bullshit. And I said the other night, this smells like a scam right from the word go. It looks like a scam. It looks like a really poorly thought out, badly put together, no background kind of a scam. So that's what I'd be doing, folks. Treat it like that. And if anybody else wants to conflate it, I would be asking why. who's making the mileage out of keeping this story going? Because it's not me. I don't want it. So, yeah. Don't worry about North. None of us are. I guess we can, pardon me, we can kind of hope that strange things happen to strange people further down the track. Or, I guess, if it really came down to it, we can always wish for one of those dickheads on the road to be, well, doing what dickheads on the road do. Huh?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?